with people right now. I want to talk with my people. I have an issue with the black community right now. We have to do better in terms of addressing some of the things that we have really done a great job of historically addressing. And that is one of the biggest things that we haven't addressed in the black community is some of the anti-blackness that comes from within the black community. It is a real problem. It's something that we have to really, really call out because our main issue in the black community is that just like with the people of color thing, we think that everybody who's a person of color is our ally. And unfortunately, that has not been the case. That ain't been the case for quite some time. We don't understand that just because someone's black and just because someone is a quote-unquote person of color, that does not make that person your ally automatically. That just means that person happens to share some characteristic that is similar to yours. That's all it means. That's all it means. And going into the future, going into the future, in terms of black empowerment, we have to realize that we can't fall for the same pitfalls that got MLK, that got Malcolm X, that destroyed the Black Panther Party. We have to not only, be about black empowerment, but we also have to be about making allies where allies can be made. What we can't be doing is sitting here talking about we can't report on negative news stories because it might make somebody look bad. And my thing is that in the black community I get the criticism that some people have given to me, and that's a fair one. A fair one is to say that maybe I shouldn't go around reporting on the bad cops who are black cops. I get that. Maybe I shouldn't, but do you understand the reason why I do that? I do that because what I don't want to happen is that white supremacists turn around and then use black cops to push about white supremacy. That's what I don't want. I don't want you to use black cops to push about white supremacy. Right? So that's how you get these white people who are going around saying, well, you got a black police chief, you got a black sheriff. And my thing is, it's like, okay, that's where that mentality comes from. We have to be honest and keep it a buck, even when some of our own folks are off code. When someone's off code, you call them off code. It is what it is. What you don't do is try to perform cover for that person or a particular issue. Because what happens is the new black media, you have some of us who will report on the failures of the Congressional Black Caucus. You will have some who will report on the black politicians who are selling us out in terms of reparations. You will have some of us who will report on some of the black police officers who are doing some of the same stuff as some of these white supremacist police officers. And then you have these people who will pop up saying, well, don't report on that. That's just divisive. As if someone being black means they can't be anti-black. See, we got to get past this idea, right? We got to get past this idea that everybody is our ally just because they're a person of color. See that? You remember I'm not sure if you guys were here for the last stream, but there was a guy who came on and we were talking about some of the anti-black racism that was coming from some of the police. And he was saying, well, there are some police departments that have people of color as officers. I said, well, the LA City Council had, mostly Latino council members, right? And what was that? They were targeting black people. They're like, well, they were also targeting Hispanics. I said, let me stop you. They were targeting the Oaxacan Mexicans. They were not targeting just Hispanic people. They were targeting the dark-skinned ones because they are considered black. That's why. See, they tried to use the minority coalition and the person of color thing as a defense against bad policing and also just racism shown from U.S. politicians. And that's why we have to have a serious conversation within the black community. The one thing that we've got to get over is flat blackness. Flat black. Do you understand what flat blackness is? Does anyone know what that term actually means? Flat blackness is when you think just because you get two black people in the same room, they are automatically gonna see on one accord, or you can use one opinion from one or the other to match or go against the other or agree with the other. That does not work that way. Prime example. If you go over to the African continent, there's a tribe known as think the Fulani. Yes, the Fulani. The Fulani tribe. If you were to talk to some other African tribes in the African continent, the Fulani, as soon as you mention that name, man, there's gonna be a very strong reaction. So why do you think that just taking two black people, taking two of our opinions and then try to match us against each other, why do you think that's gonna work? You have people who do this, right? Prime example. You have people who will go over to the Caribbean and they will say, hey, we're gonna let some people over from the Caribbean, right? And we know how this country feels towards black immigrants from the Caribbean. You saw what happened to the Haitians, right? So with that being said, you go over to the Caribbean, you will find these black people who get into the skin bleaching stuff, or they are extremely anti-black, right? And then those are the ones that you bring over here, and then those are the ones that you put into positions. It's not a black community problem. It's a white supremacist problem infiltrating the black community problem that we are not acknowledging. See, when I say this stuff, I say this under the guise of these people are still victims of white supremacy. Right? These people are victims of white supremacy. And they're being used against other people who are black to boost and promote white supremacy. That's why we have to talk about this. We have to help these brothers and sisters, right? We have to help them. We have to actually raise their levels of consciousness. But we can't do that if we're not being honest. We have to be honest about some of the issues that we're seeing amongst the diaspora. Right? I want people in black countries and across the diaspora to be aware of some of the stuff that's going on, because when they come over here, right, one of the biggest things that people say all the time is, well, we didn't know about the history of racism, right? We didn't know. We had no idea, right? We had no idea. And then that's the usual excuse in terms of them not knowing our struggle, in terms of them not having an attachment to our struggle, and that stuff, right? So now I'm taking the different strategy. I'm trying to actually alert you of what's happening here, right? So that you can't come over here and says, well, I didn't know. Now you know. But now that I'm trying to educate people, do you see what the response from certain people have been? That's being divisive. Okay, so when I would have come to you about the civil rights struggle or about slavery, and I told you the exact same thing, would you have said the exact same thing then? Yes or no? Because it gets to the point whereas when you're asking people to not speak the truth, to not speak truth to power, that is not only problematic. I would dare say that's anti-black in of itself. A part of our code is to tell the truth. A part of our code is to tell the truth. One of the biggest reasons why we see so much disrespect towards the black woman is off-code behavior. Off-code behavior. But how do you want me to address that if I can't call out the off-code behavior? I believe that when a black person refuses to support, another black-owned business, that's off-code behavior. But we can't call it out if we can't mention the off-code behavior. I think when a black person goes out of their way to attack another black person with lies, that's off-code behavior. But how do you want me to address that if you don't want me to even talk about it? See, people accuse, especially black descendants of American slaves or foundational black Americans, of using the tools of white supremacy. They love projecting that nonsense onto us, right? But the tools of white supremacy is lying or lies by omission. That is the tool of white supremacy. Think about it. Think about all the stuff that so many black people and so many people in this country did not know because white supremacists hid the information. Think about it. Think about it. What we can't do is engage in the same nonsense. If there's a problem in the black community, it doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable. We have to actually talk about it and be honest about it. Because at the end of the day, we cannot become the very thing we go against. And my there we go. And get my connection back. But the thing is that I want people to understand. At the end of the day, I'm not about trying to break down people who are black. I'm not trying to break down people who look just like me. That's not my thing. That's never been my thing. I came out in support of people who are most likely should not have done so, you know, and I did it just because they were black. So I'm not gonna attack a black person, right? For no reason. I'm not gonna just do that because it doesn't match the pattern that I've laid out on social media. So if I do it, there's a reason to do it. You cannot tell me in one breath I have a track record for honesty and just being raw and just being real. Just saying what it is, and then in another breath, I'm just being divisive. I'm just blowing things out of freaking proportion. I'm just being dishonest. I just need to move on. You can't do that in the same breath. You have to be honest. And one of the things that we got to be honest about is some of the things that we're seeing in the black community that is problematic. You're getting people unfortunately, from the diaspora who will come over here. And then what will happen is they will go against reparations. Have you noticed that? You look at that one guy, Faison Love. He's from Cuba. He has Cuban lineage. But he sit there saying, oh, black Americans, you guys don't need reparations. You don't even qualify. Why are you telling people that we don't that we shouldn't get it? That's ridiculous. And final Frosty, listen, this conversation is for black people. You are good to participate, but you're not good to untroll. The thing is that you have people who don't even belong to the lineage of the people that reparations are going to be paid out to, speaking on it and putting it down. Listen, if you don't even qualify, and if you understand that it's other black people who are going to get it, at the very least, speak up on it. Don't speak down on it. Don't try to ruin it for other black people. You don't see black Americans going over to other people's country in a freaking diaspora and saying, okay, well, you guys should run your politics this way. You shouldn't get this. You shouldn't get that. Imagine me as a black American going over to Haiti or going over to Jamaica or any other country in the Caribbean, and then me saying, hey, you shouldn't take anything from CARICOM. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. No, what you don't do is come over to a country that is not your homeland, right? Because my people have been here for centuries. Since before the 1400s. So you would definitely say we are at this point Aboriginal. At this point. Right? We've been here. So don't come to this country putting down things that are for us. Because things that we get are going to benefit you as well. There's no way that you think that someone like me is going to get reparations, and yet every black person that I know, I'm not going to help them. Of course I am. I do it now, and I ain't got it. You have to get over this idea that we can't be honest about things. Because if we're honest about some of the anti-blackness from the People of Color Coalition, from the Latino community, from the Hispanic community, from the Asian community, from the white community, from a lot of these communities. If we're honest about that, then white supremacists can't send people among us, right, to harm our energy. They can't send people among us who look like us, because people, that stuff still works. They'll get somebody, even on TikTok, you've seen it on TikTok. You get somebody who will dress up in an African dashiki, put on a put on all or a kente cloth. They'll put on the kufi, and they'll sit there and they'll say, "Hey brothers, you don't need reparations." You will see that all the time, right? I've seen that so many times. If we're just honest about some of the anti-blackness and how white supremacists use our brothers and sisters in the diaspora like that, then that stuff doesn't work. The reason why it still works is because we refuse to be honest about it. We gotta tell the truth, man. It's 2023. It is too late in the game for us to not call out off code behavior when we see it. And off code behavior don't just come from black Americans. It comes from the diaspora. We don't bleach our skin here, right? But you go over to Jamaica and the Caribbean, you see that stuff. And I'm not making fun of them. I'm not making light of that. To me, when I see that, that is a victim of white supremacy. They are not a problem. They are a victim. That's how I see them. I look at them with compassion. And I call it out because I wanted to stop. There's nothing wrong with your black skin. There's nothing wrong with black people. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with calling out off-code behavior if you know it's going to help other black people. What we cannot do going into 2023 and beyond is be silent when we see anti-black behavior. I don't care what the source is. If I see tap dancing, if I see butter biscuit eating behavior, if I see anti-blackness in any form, I'm going to call it out. Because it is imperative that we do. What we cannot do, we cannot afford to have another Candace Owens. We cannot afford to have another Brandon Tatum. We can't afford to have another Anthony Bryan Logan. There's a whole cottage industry. There's a whole industry that is dedicated to getting black people who look like us, sound like us, talk like us, right? But push white supremacy. There are whole funds for that. You want to know how I know? You want to know how I know? I've been to a conference where Candace Owens was. And I've heard these words spoken. They're looking for black creators. That's why you got this new guy out there. He's his lineage is from Haiti. I can't remember his name from now, but I think Tariq had called him out. And as you can see, Candace Owens, she's not as prominent. You don't hear from Herschel Walker now. You don't really hear from, Clarence Thomas. The only reason why he's useful is because he's on the Supreme Court. But you don't really hear from Jesse Lee Peterson now, right? But he exists, but you don't really hear from him now, right? He's not as prominent. They're looking for a new crop, a new breed. That's why I'm sounding the alarm on this. It's not so much that you have people out here doing violence. That's not the point of this. The point of this is that, guys, they're looking for a new crop. And if we refuse to be honest about some of the off-code behavior, guess what? You can have another Candace Owens who's going to come among us. Because Candace Owens was a so-called leftist at one point, a so-called liberal, right? Because she sued I think she sued a school, I think the NAACP, and a bunch of black people helped her sue a school for racial discrimination, and she won the case. And then she went over to being Candace Owens as we know her now. So had we known about some off-code behavior and known about some of the lineages and about where folks come from, or we could just look and say, tell me about the folks where you come from. How are they like? We trust all black people, but we do understand these are two different cultures. Had we actually been doing some actual looking into stuff, it wouldn't have happened. Because Candace Owens was saying some off-code stuff before, a long time before, as a so-called liberal. Because the definition of what a liberal was back in 2010, 2000, and 1999, 95, 1990, the definitions changed. Because back during those times, there was Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton, his views on immigration would be abhorrent to the modern day left, right? So what Candace Owens could have been saying way back then would have been acceptable then, but would have been but we would have called it off code behavior now, right? Do you get the point now? There are warning signs. There were warning signs. There were things, there were signs out there, whereas you had people like me trying to sound the alarm. Hey guys, white supremacy is no longer about white people. The same thing as the LA City Council showed you. It's no longer about white people. White people showed you they can use the Asian community, they can use the Latino community, they can use any community that they want to conduct white supremacy. And that includes some parts of the African diaspora. Believe it or not. There are people out there, for example, in the Dominican Republic, I reported on a story where there were the government there was targeting black people, and the U.S. Embassy was sending out some alerts to all black Americans who were living in the Dominican Republic because the Dominican Republic government was going after Haitians. They wanted to target all Haitians and get them out the country. And so I reported on that story, and I had people posting in the comments saying, "Hey, don't worry about them because remember they said that I know black, and I chastised those people, but they do have a point. A lot of those people who live in those countries, I have heard that statement made. I know black, and that doesn't mean I'm not going to support you, but I will call that out because I want that to be a learning experience. When you say I know black, and yet the government starts targeting you unfairly, and yet it's black people like me who's got to stand up for you, let that be a lesson going forward. You're being treated like you're black. I'm calling you black. Everyone sees you as black. You know you're black. Be black. Stand with us. I just want people to understand that we have to call out the off-code behavior. Because the off-code behavior is what's going to stop us going into the future. It's not just going to be the white supremacists with the white hat or goose stepping who you got to look out for now. It's the people who they can pay. They gave Candace Owens a bag, and you see how she's acting. They gave Kanye West a bag, and you see how he's acting. They gave Herschel Walker a bag, and you see how he's acting. They gave Stephen A. Smith a bag, and you see how he's been acting for decades. They can give certain black folks a bag, and they can have them go against us. So therefore, we to be on code and be codified. And therefore, if we're codified, we can see that stuff. When you ask a black person, how do you feel about reparations? Well, it should be shared with black people. And, okay, once they say and it's not just black people, off code. When you ask a black man, how do you feel about black women? I don't like black women. Off code. I don't care if you date a non-black woman. That's fine. But don't diss black women. I don't respect that. My mother's black. My mother's black. If I ever see that, you're getting banned from the chat. Period. I don't want to even associate with people who diss black women. Because guess what? I came from one. I came from one. If I go to a black woman, she says, I don't like black men. Off code behavior. If I go to a black person and they say, I don't like this black gay person. Off code behavior. I don't like this black it's a black transgender person. Off code behavior. When you attack black people and you refuse to unite and you criticize without a purpose, off-code behavior. Yes, I'm criticizing certain parts of the black community that are off-code. You don't attack black folks. When you see the mainstream media going after black folks, you stand up for them. It ain't about if you agree with them or not. That's not the point. You saw what happened with Trayvon Martin, right? George Zimmerman, the Hispanic community, you saw that. They stood with him. I was there. I know what the hell I saw. You look at the LA City Council, you had people going outside of the home of Kevin De Leon, one of the racist LA City Council members, and they were out there in support of this man. When you had the Korean store owner, back during the Rodney King days, because many people thought that the Rodney King riots was just about Rodney King. That's why they called it the Rodney King riots. That wasn't the only reason. There was a Korean store owner who fatally shot a 9-year-old black girl, and she got probation. She got away with it. And you had people within the Asian community who defended that. It ain't about agreeing with a black person. It's about standing up for us like other people stand up for their folks. Do you get that? We are the only ones who play by these silly rules. I always cite the movie Constantine. As a character, it was played by, it was a movie called Constantine, starring Keanu Reeves. It's about a comic book character who was having a war that was featuring heaven and demons and stuff. There was a character named Papa Midnight. And Midnight, he was going at Constantine because Constantine was fighting this war. And he attacked Constantine. And he's about to hurt him. And Constantine says, Midnight, you're the only one still playing by the rules. God and Lucifer aren't. Why are you? And that's essentially the position. And it's very ironic that Papa Midnight was a black man. Because it's very ironic. That is the position that the black community finds themselves in. We are Papa Midnight, still trying to play by the rules between the white supremacists above us and the so-called people of color allies around us. If we're not codified, we can't fight a conflict. If we're not codified, we can't lead a revolution. If we're not codified, we can't seek justice. This is why give me a second. Have you ever been to a Black Lives Matter rally? And let me say something, and let me see if it sounds familiar. You'll hear a crowd saying, let's say that you have a Black Lives Matter rally because some black person was shot by the cops, right? You get a crowd of black people who are protesting at the police precinct, and then they'll start shouting, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And then about 5 minutes later, you'll hear, Trans Lives Matter, this lives matter, that lives matter. And their lives should matter, absolutely. But a black person was shot that day. And as soon as you say that, right, you have a bunch of so-called fellow black people, right, who go at you. That's off-code behavior to allow that to happen at a Black Lives Matter rally when a black person got hurt. That's off-code behavior. But I've called this out every time. And what happens every time that I do it? You've seen it. You've seen it. D-Clax, what's going on, brother? What's going on, brother? Long time no see. You've seen that, D-Clax. You remember when I brought on that one person? I'm not going to mention their names. They were running for president. And as soon as I mentioned reparations, they said black and Native Americans. They all life matters. Everything. That's what I'm talking about, D-Clax. Off-code behavior. And the second that I did that, they said, oh, you're attacking a black woman. Just off-code stuff. Off-code stuff. It's just off-code stuff, man. We have got to, in the black community, develop a code. We need a code that we all follow, that we all adhere to. In the Asian community, you can't pull nonsense. And I respect that about them. I respect that about them. I respect that. In the Latino community, you can't do certain things. They don't tolerate certain nonsense. I respect that about them. In the Jewish community, they don't tolerate certain nonsense. I respect that about them. You go over to the African continent, people actually know the history. They know their history. Even though they've been colonized, they know their history. Here in Black America, we have to know our history. We have to know our landmarks. We gotta know our heroes. We gotta know our people who came before us. We gotta know the history of our soil. We gotta know about current issues. Like, for example, D-Class says, look at how they came for Brother Kyrie. Absolutely. We gotta know about those issues so that we can defend that brother. We gotta know about our history, man. We gotta know about things that affect us as a people. We gotta know about Tulsa. We gotta know about Rosewood. We gotta know about Montgomery. We gotta know about all the Black Wall Streets, not just Tulsa. We gotta know our history, because guess what? The white supremacists know. They know what they destroyed. Trust me, they kept records. Meticulous records. In fact, in many cases, that's one of the only reasons why we know about these things. They kept meticulous records, especially when it comes to slavery. So we have to, at some point, develop a code and stick to it. And one thing that we have to get a part of our code is that when we see off-code behavior, we call it out. We try to do it behind closed doors, but when we have cases like in Washington State, where you had a Black immigrant going around shooting at Black Americans and saying that he was doing it because he doesn't like Black Americans, you call that out publicly, because at that point it's national news. But if you can pull a Black person behind closed doors, like I had a disagreement with a brother earlier. I put out a video about what happened in Washington State, and a brother, I sent him the video, and he disagreed with me. He says I thought he was basically saying that he thought it was being divisive. But I want you to know, I didn't publicly say anything about that brother, and I never will. Because so long as he's not going public, I never will. Because that's on code behavior. He can block me, that's cool. That's cool. But I will never go at him publicly unless I'm seeing some extremely off-code behavior. Because I know otherwise he's not a bad dude. I know that. So why would I do that? That's on-code behavior. Off-code behavior, I'm sure what off-code behavior is. Off-code behavior is coming over to America as a Black immigrant, coming over to Washington State, saying that you don't like Black Americans, and then shooting us. Shooting at us. Some people were shot. That's off-code behavior. That person, I feel sorry for that man. I want you to notice in all of my videos, right? Notice that my criticism, right? Notice that when I criticize people, notice that when I criticize that man in that video, notice how I didn't call him any names. Notice how I didn't denigrate his lineage. I didn't even mention what country he came from. I didn't do that. Because I didn't want to attack him. And do you want to know why? Because I saw him as a victim. You don't attack a victim. You don't attack a victim. He's a victim of white supremacy. That's why he did this. Even back during slavery days, you had the Black folks who were brainwashed, who fought for the Confederacy. Some of them were forced to. I mean, a lot of them were forced to. I would think most of them were. But some of them were actually convinced. And to me, even in that scenario, even a Candace Owens or Kanye West, you are a victim of white supremacy. That's how I see you. And that's how I'm gonna treat you now. If you put out something that is negative about the Black community, I'm going to address that. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, I see all Black people as a victim of white supremacy. And even the black boule class, I see them as victims as well. Because the fact that you got to be black and boule lets me know you have lost all self-respect for yourself. Even the people who are black and who support things like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, even them, I say they are victims of white supremacy. Even them. Even them. And do you know why I say that? Because even if you want to say, hey, personal responsibility comes into play, that's cool. Those black people, all black people, start off in an unequal position as compared to everybody else. Anti-black racism is global. So when I see people in the Caribbean bleaching their skin, I don't criticize them. I feel sorry for them. Because they see their black skin as something negative. And I don't. Your skin is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with your skin. Don't bleach it. Don't do that. When I see black people doing things like putting products in their hair, I see, and I'm not trying to jump on black women, but I see some sisters, but there's brothers too. There's brothers who put relaxers in their hair too. You've seen it. You've seen the Al Sharptons. You've seen it. They'll put relaxer in their hair, and they will destroy their beautiful natural hair. Beautiful hair. People are trying and spending money to get hair that looks like yours. Because it provides natural protections from so many things. From so many things. People are trying to get skin like yours. They're getting melanin injections, melanin treatments, getting skin tans. But they tell you something's wrong with your skin. Right? I'm not trying to jump on anybody, who puts relaxer in their hair. I'm just saying that does happen. And a lot of times that happens because people have been told there's something wrong with natural hair. There's nothing wrong with it. And if you have your hair did, I have nothing against you, sister girl Jess. I love you. I love you still. All right. I'm just making a point, right? That everything that we are naturally, people are telling us that it's bad, that we gotta change, that we gotta shake it up. And the fact of the matter is, people are trying to get us to change ourselves to make us look more like them, while they trying to look like us. It's almost if you think about it, it's almost like a body snatcher like syndrome. Like I'm gonna replace you. I'm gonna force you. I'm going to convince you to help me replace you, and you become me. Wow, that is amazing, man. That is amazing, isn't it? People tell you all the time that black skin is somehow a bad thing. The funniest part about that, right? They tell you black skin is a bad thing while they fetishize us. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing. So black skin is so bad, but a Tennessee police officer certainly didn't think so. All these white girls that I be seeing at these college campuses, who be walking around with black boyfriends, they don't think so. I wish these white supremacists would just love black men the exact same way that their daughters do. Or at least that police officer in Tennessee, baby, because oh Lord Jesus. Listen, I'll say this. I'll say this. She ain't racist. I'll give her that. I'll give her that pass. Listen, I think we can give that one that pass. Good Lord. Because that many at once. Good Lord. I mean, I'm just saying. Good Lord. She ain't racist, boy. Because she did not hesitate, boy. She said, black men where? Yo. Woo, she does not discriminate. She said Black Lives gonna matter today. I Man, I thought she was a white version of Patrice Cullors. Oh Lord, she said Black Lives gonna matter, baby. I feel you. She said Black. Woo! But anyways, but back to what I was saying though, about the off-code behavior, man. We have to really, really do a better job about calling that out, and really, really focus on trying to build up a global black community, right? In a global black community, that means that even though we come from different lineages, there are things that we understand. We can have disagreements amongst each other because that's a fight amongst a cousin, a brother or sister. But when it comes to any disagreement or any kind of thing that happens on the outside, right? Anything that happens on the outside, we get on code. We circle the wagons. I don't care if a black person is harmed in Haiti. As a black American, I'm gonna say something. I don't care if a black person is harmed in Ghana. As a black American, I'm gonna say something. Right? I don't care if a black person is harmed in Jamaica. As a black American, I'm gonna say something. And do you wanna know why? Because that's on-code behavior. Off-code behavior is ignoring it. You want to know why? Because you know the world is going to ignore it. So why would you? Why would you? On-code behavior is always and in every way trying your best to uplift the black community. Some people are going to fail in that. All right? Sometimes if you're off code, that's fine. That's fine. Just try to do better. All right? We aren't looking for perfect black people because you're never going to find that, man. You're never going to find that, man. You got so many of our folks locked up right now. You got so many of our folks in the freaking cemetery right now. And freaking race soldiers and this white supremacist violence, man. You got so many of our folks who are homeless right now, on the streets right now, man. So we ain't got but so many soldiers out here. So if we see somebody out here, grab them, pull them to the side. Hey, brother, come on, do better. Black men, if you see black men messing up, pull them to the side. You ain't gotta publicly flog them. You ain't gotta do that, man. You ain't gotta do them like people did freaking Kyrie, like Stephen A. Smith did freaking Kyrie. Pull them over to the side behind closed doors and talk to them, man to man. Black women, if you see another black woman who's off code, don't publicly flog them. Pull them off to the side behind closed door. Hey sis, let's talk. But we've got to get over this thing, whereas calling out off code behavior or engaging in off code behavior, right, has an imbalance in how we see that. We are outnumbered in this country. They tell us we're only 13%. I believe that we're a much higher percentage of the population. I believe that. But that's what they say. We have to in all ways call out this anti-black behavior, because that's going to help us going into the future. Going into the future, we got to make a future for our children. We got to make a future for all black people, no matter what state you find yourself in, no matter what country you find yourself in. And the only way to ensure that future is to be on code and to stick to that code. Because a code is something that you can't break. That's something that you can't send the COINTELPRO to infiltrate. A code you can't just infiltrate. A code, you can't just have an FBI informant or law enforcement informant to come and infiltrate. You can't infiltrate a code. You can infiltrate a Black Panther Party, unfortunately. No disrespect to those brothers at all. But many of them have been infiltrated. And the only reason why they've been infiltrated because they were effective. So that's actually a credit. They don't infiltrate you if you don't work. Right? So even while they've been infiltrated, I still see them as victims of as victims of white supremacy because that's what they are. Most anytime you get black people who build anything great, it's sabotage instantly. Most of the time, I'll give you a prime example that many people don't talk about. Right. So for the longest time, the Red Tails, the one squadron, the all black squadron, fighter squadron, who never lost a plane. They didn't get credit for the longest time about some of the maintenance procedures and about how people fly planes and how people took some of their strategies and put them into flight manuals and put into all the training and everything else. They only got credit much, 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 much later than when they started getting put in museums and movies. A lot of the strategies and tactics that were used by black soldiers were adopted by the army over the years. Coming to find out, which is not unusual to hear because we fought in every war. So obviously, many people from different lineages and cultural backgrounds, they're going to fight somewhat differently. They're not going to fight exactly the same because they're not from the same background, right? So with that being said, many of our strategies and tactics were being stolen. Like, for example, fighting in swamps. That's something that we revolutionized. The Black Maroons stole it from us. Because we were so effective at doing this after the Civil War ended. Many of the slave plantations, they kept running. And shout out to Tariq Nasheed. I don't have any... I have nothing but love for that brother because he's putting out the Black Maroon movie. I think that's brilliant because I put out videos about that and it's great. We're going to get a movie about that. But there were a bunch of slave plantations that actually kept operating. And so there was this group of free and escaped slaves who would be called the Black Maroons who were going around burning down plantations. Freeing slaves. Because there was no internet. There was no satellites. There was no worldwide internet. There was no mass surveillance. So if the slave plantations kept operating in some deep woods somewhere, who would know? Who would know? Well, the black people who lived around there, they would know. So they armed themselves. And they freed our brothers and sisters. And, that story hasn't really been told by Hollywood. I would love it if after Tariq Nasheed puts out that particular movie that he did, that Hollywood or someone like Jordan Peele, picks it up and put it on the big screen. That'd be amazing. You want to tell an actual slavery story? Tell that story, but tell it right. That kind of stuff. We have to know that history, so that when people come to you and say, "Well, I'm white and my ancestors fought in the Civil War." Well, your ancestors didn't actually free us. It was mostly us freeing us. You just won the war. You won the battle. We won the war. As usual. So, we have to, and history like that isn't taught in schools. It's not going to be taught to your kids. That's why I say, make sure when you teach your children about our history, about black history, that you teach it from the perspective of a black person, not a white person. I'm not saying that that white people and other people can't write books about us. I'm just saying I don't want to hear stories about my lineage from people who don't share my lineage, because you don't have a vested interest in making sure there's accuracy. Which just makes sense, I think that people who tell the black story, who tell about the black experience, should actually share in the black experience. And there are times in which even black people can't speak on certain issues. Like, for example, if you make a documentary about black women, why would you put black men in there? So in that same light, if you make a documentary about black Americans, why would you put somebody else from the African continent there who don't share in our lineage? Like you said, when many of them come over here, they don't understand many of the things that we've been through. So then why would you add them in things that we've been through? I mean, it just does. It doesn't make sense. I wouldn't go over to Rwanda and start speaking on their lineage. It's just disrespectful, right? So, that's another example of off code behavior. Us speaking on other people's lineage, or allowing other people to speak on black people's experience who aren't black. Like, I don't mind inviting people who aren't black to the conversation. That's cool. You can talk, you can have part of the conversation, but don't alter the conversation, and don't center yourself, and don't start adding things into our history. Well, I feel that maybe if things were like this, because you couldn't show up to a Native American reservation and do that. You would probably be kicked off, and I wouldn't blame them. So we have to get over this thing where we are afraid to call out off code behavior. And like I just said, we also have to we also have to get over this thing where we are afraid to call out people who refuse to call out off code behavior or make excuses for it. Because going into the future, man, we have got to get on one page and on one accord in the global African diaspora. I would love to have some camaraderie with my brothers and sisters with the African diaspora, and I do. I love them. And I want to have camaraderie with every black American. And I do. I love them. But we realize that black Americans, not every black American and not every black person from the African diaspora is going to be on code. So we have to get our code and stay on it. That's why everyone else makes it ahead of us. When you see a Jewish person start a business, they all get on code. You see a Hispanic person start a business, they loan each other money. They get on code. They get on code majorly. Bruh, listen. They have whole networks, son. Whole networks, son. When you see the Italians, listen, Italians, when they want to get on code, they get on code, son. Them Sicilians, son. When they want to start a business, that business gets started the next day. The Asian community, when you see the Koreans, when they want to start a business, they get it started the next day. I respect that. I don't hate on them. I don't respect the hustle. I don't disrespect the hustle. Right? You got the hustle, you got the code, I don't disrespect it. I disrespect the anti-blackness that comes from them, from their code, that many of us don't want to accept because we have this people of color delusion. I'm not saying that there are people out there who can't see eye to eye on you, people out there that you can't even marry who are not black. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, once you realize as a black person where you are in the world and how a lot of the world sees you, it changes how you move. It changes how you think. It changes how you judge a situation. It changes how you want the future to be for your children. If you're a white person and you understand that we all live under a system of white supremacy, you're not as worried about your children. If you're a black person, you're worried about your children if they're walking down the street and around cops. Do you see what realizing what you are and who you are, how that just that quickly changes your perspective? Just that quickly. Just that quickly. So we have to establish a code and stick to it. Don't betray black people. Call out off-code behavior. When you see black people out here hurting other black people, like you saw in Washington State, guy out here shooting people, you say something. Yeah, say something publicly. Because it happened publicly. You might as well say something, right? Right? When you see police going at black people, you say something. And you don't call the police on black people. I'm giving you the code right now. Don't call the police on black people. You see that if you see the police going at black people, you say something. You record, you do something, you shout, you throw something, you do something. Do something. When you see a black-owned business trying to start up, you throw them some chips, you give them some money, you help them out, because everyone else helps their folks. When you see a black woman being attacked, black men, you do something. Get up. Do something. Because I guarantee you, if you attack women from another community, and that community finds out, they gonna do something. Oh, they gonna do something. Trust me. Black women, when you see the media or anyone else, the police, judges, anybody else going at black men, you say something. But don't worry, I trust sisters. I trust black women. I trust y'all, because for the most part, a lot of the off-code stuff, it ain't really been black women. I trust y'all. A lot of my brothers have been on code, but the black women, y'all have been our backbone. Please stay on our side. Please. I trust y'all. I trust, and yes, there's a whole lot of black women who are off code. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Lord have mercy, do not get me wrong. But I want our sisters to really have our backs. Because right now, many people are targeting black men, and we need y'all. And black men, you gotta have their back too, because they can't have our back. If you see people, like I want you to know this, right? One thing that I got away from, I had to criticize myself. I allowed people to jump on Lizzo and say all those mean things about her, and I did that in the past, and that was years ago. The reason why I ban people from my channel who do that now is because I don't care how big she is. I don't care what she says. She ain't did nothing to nobody. She just making her music. And it was off code of me to ever allow that, because I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, it's just a harmless joke. No. It's not just a harmless joke. I don't allow people to share Whitney Houston memes where they're mocking or making light of what happened to her. I don't allow people to make fun of any black person. I don't allow that now, because people say, oh, it's just jokes. And that's how it starts, right? It's just jokes. Until it's not. Until it's not. Right? I don't want to see anti-blackness in general. But the one thing I cannot tolerate is us allowing it. We can't control if someone's anti-black or not. We can't control people, but we absolutely can control how we respond to it. If you don't have respect for black people, how do you expect anyone else to? If you don't call out the anti-blackness and the off-code behavior, then guess what? White folks gonna think, well, you allowed them to do it, and you never said anything. We gotta let them know we don't like that either. No, off-code behavior gets called out. Anti-black behavior from any community. I don't care if you're white, black, brown, green, purple. I don't care what color you are. You can be the Na'vi from Avatar for all I care. If you're anti-black, you're getting called out. Period. Because there's this misconception, and I'm gonna go back to the whole people of color thing, right? People do this whole people of color thing. Well, if we put more people of color, and when they say people of color usually means not black, right? Because people have no problem with calling out black people when there's a mugshot, right? They have no problem doing that, right? When they say people of color, it just means not black. Or it's a very lazy way for white people to classify everybody in an all-encompassing term without them having to learn anything about anyone's lineage, anyone's background, or anyone's country of origin. It's very difficult for white people to distinguish the difference between a Korean person, a person from China, and a person from Japan. So they just say people of color. as an all-encompassing term because they're just simply lazy. That's why people of color came along. That term is weaponized. I hope you understand that, right? People of color, when there's a requirement, let's say with the LA City Council scandal, right? More people are saying, "Hey, we should put more people of color on the LA City Council." But people of color weren't the ones that were targeted. It was black people, and people said, "Well, they also targeted they also targeted Mexicans too. They targeted the Oaxacans, the Oaxacans or the Owakans. I think it is Oaxacan Mexicans, right? And those people are indigenous, and they are black." Many of them are considered black. That's why they're being targeted. That's why Nuri Martinez called them ugly. That's why. That's why. That's why. That's why. That's why she targeted him. And people who say things like, "Well, we don't have to replace the LA City Council members with black people. We could just replace them with people of color." Don't realize that line of thinking is what led to this. That line of thinking is what led to this. You don't recognize some of the anti-blackness that is found within those communities. And so, with that being said, the people who you promote are the most anti-black people within those communities. You can't think to yourself that black people have been in the same condition for so many years, year after year after year, and they refuse to pay reparations, and they're gonna pay it. Oh yeah, you're gonna pay it, but they haven't paid it thus far. With all these so-called people of color representatives who have been in Congress and also the Senate, right? Right? All these people of color who are in the Senate, people from the Asian community, people who are from the Hispanic community, so many other communities, right? Why in the world is it that we haven't progressed in all these years? And the LA City Council scandal shows you what it was. We have voted for Democrats, we voted for Republicans, we voted for all these people who we thought we had a camaraderie with because they were people of color. And we refused to call a spade a spade. We refused to be honest. And what happened as a result of that? Tell me. So now that white supremacists are aware that we're on to them about the Asian community, we are on to them about the Hispanic community, we are on to them about the Italian community, we are on to them about the Jewish community, we are on to them about some of the other communities who you send among us who are actually anti-black. With the Jewish community, we saw that with Kyrie Irving. With the Hispanic community, we saw that with the LA City Council. With the Asian community, we saw that since forever. We saw that with the beauty supply shops, where we are pushed out of businesses and in arenas in which we actually invented the products. We've seen that forever. We've seen everybody gets on team white supremacy because they are promised white privilege. They're promised that. They're promised that. And that's exactly what happens every single time. We try to get this camaraderie with people who are outside of our community, and that's not a bad thing. There are some people we can be comrades with, but we also need to be honest. Anti-blackness morphs. You don't need white people anymore to be anti-black. Do you understand that? Do you understand that if I make a statement that you're anti-black and white people never even existed and we only had Asian and Hispanic people, that statement would still be accurate? I want you to, in your mind, clear your mind, focus on the term anti-black. Do you think you need white people to be anti-black? You don't need white people to be anti-black. So now that you understand that, you can understand the LA City Council scandal a whole lot more. You don't need white people to be anti-black. Just like you don't need black people to talk about white supremacy. If black people never existed, white supremacy would still exist. If there were only white people and Hispanic people and Asian people, they would try to dominate the Hispanic and Asian people. And we know this. Because if you go over to those countries, you can see the results of it. I'm going to say it again. If you go over to those countries, you can see the results of it. So, I mean, I want to have this conversation with everyone. I want you to see that I'm not going to take some anti-black turn. I'm going to be the same ACAB devil. But I'm going to be honest. And I'm going to look out for black people globally. But if you are a police officer and you hurt somebody, I don't care if the victim is white, I'm going to talk about you. If you're a politician and you ain't pushing stuff for the black community, if you are abusing people, and if you are pushing taxation without representation, if you are drone striking countries, especially black countries, if you are taking tax dollars and you are not giving reparations and you're not giving tangibles towards the black community, I'm going to talk about you. I don't care if you're black, because someone needs to talk about you. If you are anti-black racist who happens to be black, you know, going out targeting black people, I'm gonna talk about you. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about you because someone has to. Because I care about my people above all else. And you wanna know why? I got a son in South Carolina, and I got a son who's on the way right here. I got a son right here. I have children who are black. So common sense would tell you I have a vested interest in caring about black people because my kids are black. They can't be nothing else but black. Look at me. So I want what's best for black people because long after I'm gone, my kids have to live with the consequences of whatever we didn't fix here. I love you all. Be one and be safe.